Greetings, my name is Timothy Halloran. I am an evolutionary astrologer. We are meeting on Monday, February 17th, and astrology is to understand more of the truth than otherwise would be possible. Unfortunately, due to the trendiness of astrology, it's very rare that we see astrology used in such a way. It's not always the thing, but how we use it that determines our reality. Like how we can use a relationship to become more self-aware or address the truth, as much as we can use relationship to escape and go crazy by concocting a false reality. Well, the same is true when it comes to astrology, tarot reading. There are certain people that want to get readings in order to avoid reality. But evolutionary astrology is certainly not with such orientation. This is the real deal, deep astrology. So about half of you are new to this channel. I encourage you to subscribe, get a dose of this depth that we go to twice a month in these videos. And we're meeting just beyond the point of no return in an incredibly profound year, which I titled at the start of this year, A Spiritual Crisis into the Rocket Ship's Front Door. A spiritual existential meandering and searching and exploration, because the start of 2025 is a period of all-time creative block. This is a collective phenomena at this time, as is the experience of not knowing what to do right now. And I'm going to continue to be direct, as I have for over a dozen years. If you're awake, alive, aware at all, you're uncomfortable these days. But the majority of the population is never awake, alive, or aware during uncomfortable periods. There is a tendency to opt towards the Disney World avoidance, people floating on the ceiling, pretending everything is okay. That's going to be some of what we discuss today. A new moon in Pisces at the end of February is going to set the tone for March 2025. Pisces. There is an overall Pisces-Neptune collective theme, which is why I'm going to put my most recent workshop online on the 12th house. This is going to cover this archetype to a depth which is unusual, really going to the depth of evolutionary astrology to understand the whole archetype of Pisces. So you can get that workshop on the 12th house from my website at the link below. And it is for the deep divers. Evolutionary astrology is really for those deeply into spirituality. Pisces, Neptune, the 12th house, rules the experience of that which we do not have any control over. The reality of fate, the reality of surrender. And it's also when we encounter the challenge of spiritual disillusionment or actual delusion. There is a difference, therefore, between wishful or hopeful thinking and surrender. There is a difference between what Jesus taught, which is essential Neptune, Pisces, high spiritual teaching on love thy neighbor, and a difference between Christian nationalism, which is the more popular version of Christianity, which certainly is not about love thy neighbor, as we can plainly see. With the moon's nodes forming a square with Jupiter beginning now and forming exact into May, this theme of what is truth, what's really good, how do we orient a good, meaningful, helpful, supportive orientation to the whole in a time where our help is needed? When everyone's in a different circumstance, there is no one size fits all. And this is the danger of this exact transit. The shadow of Jupiter, which can absolutely be expressed in its worst potential when Jupiter squares the moon's nodes, forming now exact through May, is this disease of the one size fits all, which has been our history, that we need to remember collectively as we are at the tail end of the Pisces age, as opposed to pretending that we're jumping and skipping into the Aquarius age. Actual astrologers know what time it is. 2012 was not an astrological event. That was the first case study I got to see just how delusional the group that I have been labeling the New Age. Why? Because the New Age isn't what this group has been proclaiming. And I was not one of those in 2012 saying the whole world's about to ascend, because that is not what is about to happen. At the tail end of the age of Pisces, we need to understand the wisdom that Christ taught about unconditional love, Neptune, about loving thy neighbor, Pisces, about surrendering to the greater good, which means surrendering to what the collective is asking of us, as opposed to us pretending that God wants us to create our own reality and live an eternal vacation life. I have attempted to distill the essence out of this group that's very excited about the future, that's very much excited about spirituality and wanting to explore spirituality, but is not necessarily spiritual as the New Age. Because this positive, junky, wishful thinking, you create your own reality, backfires when the bubble bursts, when our reality doesn't get manifested just by clicking our heels together or thinking the right thoughts, or being a good person, like you prayed to the right God, or you joined the right church, as if that were life, or as if that were how life works. What that is an extension of Christian slave mentality. You've got white people owning black people while they are simultaneously proclaiming to be Christian. Are they practicing Christ's teachings of unconditional love and love thy neighbor? No. They are patting themselves on the back for being good people despite enabling that evil anyways. The New Age movement is an extension of white male patriarchy that in contemporary times oftentimes dresses itself up as extreme, feminist, whitewashed. It doesn't matter what your gender is in this life. You could have been a string of another gender in other lives. It's oftentimes past life conquistadors leading these patriarchal, wrapping paper feminist crusades, attempting to fit everyone else in the one-size-fits-all, which is actually being driven by fear. The whole thing's being driven by fear and insecurity as opposed to love. Now, I've had to understand, why am I one of the few people talking about these things so redundantly, so openly, for so many years? Many people have thought it was a chip on my shoulder. I was holding out for that too. Unfortunately, that's not the case. It is because I have been less fearful. That's it. And me addressing the things that others don't want to look at is about to be no longer me complaining, because I'm not going to be the one giving the warnings anymore. As these dawning realities continue to burst more and more bubbles, forcing us out of these old beliefs that were actually delusional in the first place, because they were rooted in a type of wishful thinking and hopefulness that's actually originating from fear, as opposed to authentic surrendering. We're going to make sure that everything is perfect and good, and we're perfect and good, and everything's going to be fine, is exactly how 1930 German Nazis were. It's not actually loving. It's not actually spiritual. And we're all being asked to really examine our deeper beliefs, our dreams, our goals in the be-all, end-all way, with the moon's north node having just entered Pisces. This new moon's joined with Saturn, Mercury. There's going to be a whole Pisces stellium coming up. It's going to be Pisces, Pisces, Pisces. Do we have complete control over our reality? The reality of Neptune is we do not have complete control over everything. There are forces greater than ourselves. One of them is namely the collective. Do you get to choose what's going on out in the world? Are you God? Is your positive manifesting really changing the world in this way we've been really wishfully and hoping and pretending and sparkly? When I've taken a shitload of criticism for saying the things that no one else wants to say, which has actually been in service for others out of care and consideration, because the bubble's going to burst. And it hurts when we cling onto a delusion. The best thing we can do is burst those bubbles for ourselves, which is what real spirituality is. It is an orientation towards truth, not an orientation to being likable. To orient towards the popularity contest these days is to sell your soul to the Antichrist. The popularity contest is oriented towards a fundamentally unhealthy society and culture that was born out of military consciousness. We have been in oppressive ages up until now. We're kidding ourselves to believe that we're not in an oppressive age. That is the reality we are going to wake up to. We would love to believe we're beyond the feudal point. At what time have we been beyond a feudal point? It has always been delusional for us to make believe that we're so powerful and so entitled when we haven't done the necessary work to get there yet. And that's the work we're being called to do. There's a massive creative block right now because we're going through a huge readjustment. Now is not the time when the baby hits the ground running. Now is not the time to have the pedal to the metal. Now, February is not when I'm saying you have to do and when you have to go, but that time is soon coming. We're going through a tremendous adjustment right now. There is way too much to process to know what it is yet. We have to digest what is at hand. These triggers are immense. These triggers are bringing us to remember what we have authentically lived up until now. And one of the most common experiences that I am observing at this time, while Mars stations direct in Cancer, thank the Lord, at the end of this month, Monday the 24th, one of the most common collective experiences is people are waking up to a reality that they have been gaslit by nearly everyone up until this moment in time. That is a result of the world, the culture, the society in which we are born that is nearly a fish in water to this type of emotional abuse. We are so fish in water to emotional abuse. We grow up in emotionally abusive families, and then we become oppressors to ourselves, and then we spend the rest of our lives trying to appease our parents, and we never get to live. We don't even know who we are because we haven't had healthy mirroring, because the world is not a safe place. Even our families that we would love to believe are so awesome and supportive. Even our friends that we would love to believe are so awesome and supportive. It's one of the rarest things in the world for someone to actually hold this most missing and needed medicine of Cancer. And Mars station on the planetary north node of Saturn and Pluto is telling us that we need to lean into this most missing and needed medicine on the planet at this time. That's what we're going to do. The sleepwalking zombies aren't going to do it. The ones who are realizing they're not on Team Zombie are the ones that have to do it. We have to create it for each other. We have to create it for ourselves. There are missing support systems in our world that unfortunately we are the ones to build through our own experience of lack thereof. Mars stationing in a square to Chiron is no joke. That's going to go on through the end of March. This is extremely vulnerable, extremely sensitive, extremely reactive, hair sliver triggers causing massive overreactions for good reason. Not no good reason, good reason. These are necessary triggers that are prodding very big wounds to bring up this necessary emotional digestion. And as we hold the barf bag for our inner child, we're actually barfing out the story that has made us into who we are. It's a very important story that we have to honor, even if nobody else in your life has honored your story. The reason why I am capable of holding and teaching what I have consistently for a decade and will continue to teach for over, I'm sure for the rest of my life, is it was born out of the lack thereof. I haven't had this support in my life. I've had to create it out of nothing up till this day, because it hasn't changed. I'm going through the same experiences as y'all, I'm sure, for the most part. And this Mars station brings up gender stigma. And this Mars station brings up all these dynamics to do with will to live, sexuality. These things can be at an all-time low right now. We're basically at a crisis point, needing to rescue our will to live. Many of us have felt this experience of creative block or losing our spiritual connection, like there's typically a window in the ceiling and a cloud just went over that window. And now it's like, where's the inspiration? Where's that bigger picture? That's why I recommend the 12th house workshop. That this is my latest contribution. I really, really went deep into this research and this work. It is a very, very profound journey. The spiritual disillusionment is integral in our spiritual journey. The letting go, the not accepting it unless it proves itself to be God and spiritual, has to be maintained as authentic spirituality. We have to embrace that and not settle for anything less. When you find your guru sexually molesting somebody, do you pretend that never happened because it's an inconvenient truth? People have pretended I've been talking like I have a chip on my shoulder. Y'all don't know what I have survived. This face is a survivor face. Up until this moment, I have been surviving. And that's no exaggeration. But hardly anybody knows my truth or my story. I've experienced more invalidation, like it's been on steroids, I think more than most people, while I simultaneously validate people to a level which they've never experienced in their lives, even by those closest to them. That's why I'm so passionate about astrology. This is liberation through understanding. It is a sword of awareness. It is a beam of truth. This is not therapy. The way sound therapy is therapy because it makes you feel relaxed. This is way deeper, way more meaningful. And I'm extracting astrology from the quote-unquote New Age, which is actually bullshit because the age of Aquarius is not what this age of Aquarius, New Age, everyone's ascending. What a bunch of horseshit. What that does is lead us into apathy, lead us into delusion, if not blaming and guilt-tripping ourselves for not clicking our heels and already being there, as if we had that power or as if God wanted us to do it that way instead of the actual compassionate way. Jesus said, if you want to follow me, pick up our cross. What that means is if we want to do authentic spirituality, we're going to go against the grain of the status quo. We're going to go against the grain of what's popular. None of this pop astrology, pop spirituality is authentic. It's what I've been saying so redundantly as a warning, not a complaint. It's not because I'm all selfish and wanting all this attention. It's because I'm literally watching my species getting led by lemming leaders off of the cliff. It's serious. And I think most people have already made up their minds by now. There's very few people on the fence. People tend to be really delusional. When we go through hard times like these, they go into conspiracies and delusion, and when the truth whacks them in the face, they pretend it's something else. There's no point in wasting your time on the delusional people. We have to unfortunately identify them and remove them for the abuse that they are unconsciously recycling that is evil. It's not okay. We're not demonstrating love by saying, yeah, evil, do whatever you want. That's not loving. Enabling evil is not loving. If you're in a physically abusive relationship and you buy a reading from me and my job is to give truth to you, am I doing my job by sugarcoating your reality, enabling a delusion, which is avoiding the physical abuse that's going on? My job is to tell you there's physical abuse going on. We live in an oppressive age. This is not a click your feet together and everything's going to magically be okay time. I'm sorry, that's not what Pisces is. That's not what surrender is. That's not the reality of Neptune. The reality of Neptune is the collective right now is an authentic horror. We are still in a dark age. We don't skip and jump from the dark age into a golden age overnight. It's very few pioneers and authentic spiritual souls willing to do the hard, dirty work that are up ahead, and the rest are going to ride those souls' coattails. And the reason why they have to wait for others to go ahead first is out of fear. The reason why we want to skip and jump into the future and everything's going to be fine is out of fear. And I think that we don't want to be overwhelmed by the nightmare. We need to get into nature. We need the somatic therapy. We need the colors and the sound and the music and the dance. So to tune into God in ourselves, so to tune into the eternal spiral and get inspired, that's going to set us back out into work. That's going to set us back out into motion, not into escaping as if that's what everyone should do. It's not. If everyone escapes right now, the ship is already sunk. That's not what Neptune means. Neptune means we're having to surrender to the forces outside of our control, including the collective. We don't choose the day and age in which we're born. We have to surrender to that, get the message, and then respond in each our own unique way. We all have a way to help. We all have a way to support, spread authentic love, authentic spirituality in an antichrist age where the antithesis of love and the antithesis of spirituality is being paraded around as love and spirituality as the more popular version of love and spirituality. The antichrist basically feels like this. Everything's fine and everything should be a flat line. Which is actually hyper-masculine. Ooh, because there's no change, there's no motion, there's no flow. Ooh, nothing is there. There's no experience. There's no love. There's no dance of union and separation between lover and beloved. That's what you get in hyper-masculinity. That has been the pop religion going on for thousands of years, which is why slave owners got to own their slaves and, ooh, well, I'm still going to heaven anyways. And they always put this fucking fake smile on, these antichrist people. And they think that they're all spiritually evolved for having shiny teeth and being bright and shiny. And more people are misled than that by what's authentic because we live in a world ruled by superficiality. Astrology, specifically evolutionary astrology, taught by Jeffrey Wolf Green, is liberation. Because it's a beam of light, it's a beam of truth. It illuminates everything. Now the sun's up. It's not the middle of night anymore. Everything is illuminated. You know everything for what it actually is. That doesn't mean we know everything that's going to happen, because we are learning to surrender. How can we uncork this creative block? How does the artist paint? They have to forget that they're an artist, but they position themselves in front of the blank canvas anyways. That's the paradox of Saturn and Pisces. We're going to have so much of this curriculum in the next few months. The more we try to force a square peg through a round hole, it's like trying to force open the springtime flowers prematurely. There's just more tendency they'll fall apart between our fingers. We have to surrender to the reality of process. We have to let this thing unfold, and as it unfolds, then we see it for what it actually is. When the artist tries to create the world's greatest painting that's going to change the world, gets paid $1 billion, the more pressure they put on their shoulders, the more impossible it is to paint. But that doesn't mean the artist gives up and just floats around in imagination. No, they position themselves in front of the blank canvas anyways. And maybe they plug in an iPod, they start thinking a random thought, they start whistling a random tune, and somehow the paintbrush picks itself up. And the painting paints itself. That is the dichotomy, the paradox, the balance of Saturn and Pisces, because Saturn wants to constrict. It wants to build the structure for Pisces, which is the antithesis of that which we can control. It is the inspiration that we get possessed by. We don't make that happen in a forcible way. When a musical conductor wakes up inspired, it's not like, I'm going to write an orchestra piece that's, in G sharp, and it's going to be half notes here and whole notes here. No. The musician wakes up and it's already in their head, right? It just dropped from on high. So we're actually having to create a structure for that. All of this Saturn balsamic to Neptune and Pisces is going to be throughout this year. It's so incredibly profound. Such a spiritual death and rebirth as we get real Saturn with these more nebulous realms. Pisces, it is the time for the bubbles to burst, those realities to dissolve, and they will. There's going to be so many bubble bursting experiences. That's why we don't want to follow lemming leaders off of the cliff right now. As much as we need to slow down and digest and not be overwhelmed and not feel like we have to do everything in this exact moment, as Mars is still retrograde, will fortunately station direct at the end of this month. Squares Chiron once more at the end of March before popping into Leo in April and going opposite to Pluto once more. That's when we're going to feel the baby born. That's when there's more likely of a creative block to get popped. So we can use this time to incubate. We want to be as flexible as humanly possible right now. If you can take time off, it's a good time to take off, to really allow the space just to digest. We have to emote. We have to digest. Let these triggers, as sharp as they are, remind us of our true story so we can make the necessary adjustments to create a support system. Mars stationing in Cancer, where we're being directed is at our families, is at our homes, is at our living location. The people that are around this, are they really on our team? Do they really get us? As many people, especially those awake and aware, are waking up to reality that they've been gaslit up until this point. How we oftentimes know that we're being gaslit is we're trying to share our story, but nobody can even talk about it. Nobody can validate it. And so we ourselves start to believe we are crazy. Ladies and gentlemen, do not allow yourself to go down on that sunken ship. I don't care how much New Age garbage is saying put a smile on, put a military face on, swallow the poison pill, continue to stay in an unhealthy, abusive environment, relationship, family dynamic. It doesn't matter. That's not being spiritual anymore. Going down with the sunken ship, it's enabling evil in others. You're going to inspire your family, your relationship, your children. If you have to separate from them sometimes, if you have to separate from an abusive force, you're demonstrating integrity, you're demonstrating self-respect. This is all about self-respect right now. The gaslighting ends with self-respect. The emotional abuse ends with self-respect. The repeating the horrors of the past where we've been projected and blamed for things that are not even true about us because we live in a world where most people are sleeping zombies. We need not waste our time with that anymore. We need not be understood by everyone anymore. We need not win any popularity contest. There is no more surefire way to shoot our soul in the face, to shoot ourselves in the foot. Do not do it, please. Take this time to readjust from the inside out. And if we have to create safety from the inside out because it's not on the outside, that's the work. How do we change this environment so that way there's no more oppressive forces coming down on us? Because can we access creativity while we're being oppressed? We have to actually remove the outer oppression. Then we identify the oppressors in us now, and we tend to oppress ourselves. Then we remove the oppressor inside of ourselves, which we don't do by trying to eliminate it. We paradoxically do by inviting that to the table. Yeah, you're a voice in me now too, and you're a part of me too, and you can tell your story. And hello, old father. Hello, ex. Whatever it may be. Thanks for the old story. Thanks for the old reminder of what I'm not anymore, of what I've outgrown. Some people change, some people don't. I don't think most people do because we're born into a culture and society that's oppressive from the ground up and actually trains us, whether it be religion, whether it be society or culture, pretty much universally, to stunt our own spiritual evolution and to outsource our power to others, such as priests and higher-ups. That's why so many people are misled by the lemming leaders. It comes out of fear and distrust even of our own selves. Ladies and gentlemen, please do not be your own oppressor anymore. Do not gaslight yourself anymore out of your authentically lived experience. While so many have projected onto me that I'm being negative and complaining, I have been holding the space for all of you to get real. It is the most healthy, useful service I could provide at this time when there are so many other figures out there encouraging us to do the opposite. Pretending, wishful thinking, and hopefulness is not a sign of advanced spirituality. What our life demonstrates is what comes from the inside. Start with respecting yourself first. Those who carry this medicine most naturally have to liberate themselves first. You are the maternal ones. You've lived in a world that hasn't respected you. They've used you like children clinging on to a nipple. Get yourself to high ground first. The whole story will start to change as the rest of the world rides the authentic pioneers into a future that's different than the one we may have been holding up till now. But that doesn't mean that we throw in the towel. This is always going to remain a spiritual life. This is always going to remain an earth school. So we're here for this curriculum. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this situation. We wouldn't be here at this time. So let's accept it for what it is. I'll continue to do my best to shine a light on it as it all unfolds. And stay tuned as we will be meeting for a Q&A this next week. So if you'd like to get a mini reading from me, understand why you're experiencing what you are or what to do with what you're working with, the cards you have dealt, that's why I'm here. join us at Rasa Leela Community. That's going to continue to be a hub, disconnected from social media giants, disconnected from the eyes and ears and others. This is a separate space paid and hosted by myself, that's private, that's exclusive, and is therefore a safe space where we are not only included and invited, but encouraged to be real, to be vulnerable, because what we're going to do is demonstrate a new definition for strength being vulnerability, as opposed to suppressing everything and pretending that's stoic and mature. No, strength is vulnerability, but in order to demonstrate that, we do need the safe space. So Rasa Leela Community is one such space. We can use that to start supporting one another where we need to start building this momentum in this most exciting and profound year to come. All right, next time I'll be speaking with you, Mars will be direct, so I'm hoping for some turnarounds for us all. Wishing you the very best. Please take care.